wind had no sound, but the trees shivered anyway. Sarah's footsteps echoed along the empty street, uneven against the cracked pavement. Streetlights flickered, one after another, as if they were arguing over whether to stay lit. She paused at the edge of the park, staring at the swings. They moved gently, though no one had touched them. A laugh, or maybe a sob, wafted through the darkness. Sarah's chest tightened. She scanned the shadows. Nothing. Only the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of a streetlight, and the hollow ache of silence. Then she noticed it, a small backpack lying beneath the swing, worn and frayed. The name tag was still legible, Emma. Her phone slipped from her hand, clattering against the asphalt. She bent down, heart hammering. The zipper was open, but the contents had vanished. No books, no lunch, no notebook, nothing. Emma? Sarah called, her voice trembling. No reply. Just the creak of the swings, rocking in the empty night. A sudden gust slammed the backpack shut, as if it had a mind of its own. And then, just as abruptly, the swing stopped moving. Silence fell like a curtain, thick and suffocating. Somewhere not far off, a whisper, "She's gone." Just like that, Sarah froze, a chill crawling up her spine. Something unseen was watching, something waiting. And in that moment, she realized Emma wasn't the first. Sarah didn't remember the last time the town had felt so empty. Usually the sidewalks were dotted with joggers, kids with ice cream cones, and neighbors chatting over fences. But tonight, there was nothing. Only the wind carrying leaves in small, restless spirals across cracked pavement. The streetlights buzzed weakly, one flickering above her like a dying heartbeat. Every shadow seemed to move just a fraction too fast, as if the darkness itself was aware of her presence. Her hands trembled as she lifted the abandoned backpack. She turned it over in her fingers, as though the object alone might give her answers. But there were none. Nothing but the frayed fabric and the name tag, Emma. A sound made her start. A faint scraping from the alley beside the park. She froze, straining to listen. Nothing. Then the faintest echo of footsteps, irregular, hesitant, too small to belong to an adult. Her mind raced. "Emma?" She called again, louder this time, her voice cracking. No answer. Just the whisper of the wind. Sarah had lived in this town all her life, and yet tonight it felt alien, warped. The familiar streets twisted under the weak light. A lamppost she passed daily seemed taller, leaning, watching. Houses she'd known forever looked empty and hollow, windows dark, doors shut too tightly. She could almost feel the weight of the walls, pressing in, as if the town itself was holding its breath. The police had been helpful, in the clinical way that people are when tragedy isn't theirs. "We'll investigate, ma'am," the officer said, his face polite but distant. He hadn't looked at her eyes, hadn't tried to understand the dread gnawing in her chest. Sarah wasn't sure anyone could understand. She felt a gnawing suspicion that this wasn't random, that disappearances didn't just happen by chance. Walking past the small, shuttered corner store, she noticed the window cracked, a tiny shard of glass jutting out like a fang. Inside, cans and boxes were scattered, as if someone, or something, had hurried through, searching. The hair on the back of her neck prickled. She remembered the stories whispered at town meetings, the hushed warnings that people had stopped sharing openly. Stories of children and adults vanishing in the night, belongings left behind as if the person had been erased. The thought made her stomach twist. Emma wasn't the first. Maybe she wouldn't be the last. Sarah turned a corner and the alley ahead seemed impossibly long. Her phone, already weak on battery, buzzed faintly, a reminder that even technology couldn't bridge the growing darkness around her. She felt the familiar tug of anxiety, the irrational urge to run, but something rooted her to the spot. Curiosity, dread, and guilt tangled together, each feeding the other. Then she heard it. A soft creak, the unmistakable groan of a swing. She hadn't noticed at first, but it was closer now. She froze, pulse hammering. The swing in the park had stopped moving when she picked up the backpack, but now it swayed gently again, as if pushed by an invisible hand. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice hollow and shaking. Silence. Then the whisper returned, faint, almost beneath the wind. "Don't follow." Sarah felt it then, a sudden icy pressure along her spine. Something unseen brushed past her, the air tightening around her chest, making it hard to breathe. She stumbled back, gripping the backpack as if it were a shield. The shadows along the alley seemed to ripple, stretching and bending, forming shapes that were almost human, but not quite. Her stomach knotted. Fear bubbled into panic. Her mind raced through the names she had heard over the years. Marcus gone while jogging. Lena disappeared on the hike near the cliffs. Harold, last seen on the porch of his home, never to be found again. And now Emma, all ordinary everyday people. People who had simply existed, and then vanished. She told herself to breathe, to think rationally, but reason felt distant. The town itself seemed to pulse with secrecy. Each corner she turned brought only more questions. Why did some houses look untouched while others seemed rifled? Why did the night feel alive, as though it were observing her? Why did the wind whisper warnings she couldn't quite understand? Her phone buzzed again, this time a text from her friend Clara. "Check the park. You need to see this." Sarah's heart lurched. Clara never sent messages like this, especially at this hour. But curiosity pushed her forward. With every step, the shadows thickened. The sounds of the town, the creak of shutters, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a dog seemed amplified, deliberately unnerving. And then she saw it. A small figure standing at the far edge of the park. Not moving, not blinking, just staring. Too still, too silent. Emma? Or something pretending to be her? Sarah's throat went dry. A wordless scream clawed at her chest, but no sound emerged. And in that frozen moment, she understood. Tonight, she wasn't just searching for Emma. She was stepping into a darkness that had claimed others before her, and it wasn't done yet. Sarah's legs carried her toward the small figure, but the air thickened with every step. The shadows stretched unnaturally across the park, folding in on themselves like living things. Leaves swirled in small circular patterns around her ankles, though no wind blew. Her throat was tight, her chest heaving. She blinked, and the figure was gone. Panic clawed at her stomach. She called out, "Emma, come on, this isn't funny." No answer, only silence. But then a faint giggle, low and hollow, echoing as if from beneath the earth. She remembered the stories again, every disappearance, every whispered warning. There were patterns people never wanted to talk about. People vanished near empty parks, along old trails, in houses that looked ordinary by day, and always belongings were left behind. Sometimes a shoe, a notebook, a scarf, never the person. Sarah bent to check the ground. The grass was undisturbed, except for one set of footprints, small, childlike, leading toward the woods. They ended abruptly. No signs of struggle, no broken twigs, no dragged soil, just nothing. She felt the first flicker of doubt in her mind. Maybe she was imagining it. Fatigue, nerves, stress, surely that was all it was. But the air didn't lie. The silence screamed in her ears. Something was watching, waiting. Voices in the dark returning home didn't bring relief. Her apartment, usually warm and comforting, seemed colder tonight. Shadows pooled in corners that never existed before. The hum of the refrigerator sounded wrong. Too deep, almost like a low growl. She checked her phone. No messages from Emma. Nothing new from Clara either. The last text, "Check the park. You need to see this," burned in her mind. Something about it felt wrong, like a lure. And then she heard it, a whisper behind her apartment door. "Sarah." She spun, heart hammering, and the corridor was empty. Nothing moved, yet the whisper returned, closer this time, fragmented. "Why? Do you look—" Her pulse raced. She slammed the door shut, pressing her back against it, trying to steady her breath. Shadows shifted across the walls, long and impossible, bending toward her. Her neighbor, Mr. Harlow, had warned her once, months ago, during a casual hallway encounter. "You see some things, they just take people," slowly, quietly. "And you can't fight them." Sarah had laughed then, a nervous, polite chuckle. Now she remembered his eyes. Wide, haunted, almost pleading. The first clues. The next day she returned to the park in daylight, hoping rationality would reclaim her. Sunlight didn't help. The swings were empty still, but there was an odd shine in the dirt beneath one, a small silver locket, scratched and dented. She picked it up. Inside, a photo, a little girl smiling, eyes eerily familiar. She felt her stomach twist. Emma's face? Or someone else who had vanished years ago? Sarah's investigation became obsessive. She scoured police reports, old newspapers, online forums. Every case she found had similarities. Ordinary people vanishing, items left behind, no signs of struggle, only whispers of something unseen. One report chilled her most. A boy named Marcus, gone exactly like Emma, last seen near an abandoned playground. Authorities called it unexplainable, families called it cursed. Everywhere she turned, the disappearances created a web she couldn't ignore. A pattern emerged, locations that seemed ordinary, mundane, yet beneath them lay something dark. Micro-events build paranoia. The days blurred into nights as Sarah's life fractured, objects moving. Her keys vanished from the counter, then appeared on the floor near the door. A pen rolled across her desk, though no draft disturbed it. Whispers, low, incoherent, sometimes forming words. Don't look, don't follow. Shadows, shapes that lingered longer than they should. Bending toward her from corners, animals acting strangely, cats staring at empty corners, birds silent in flight. Every tiny event chipped at her sense of reality. Friends noticed her trembling hands, the hollow look in her eyes. "Sarah, you're scaring yourself," Clara said, attempting comfort. "No," Sarah whispered, shaking her head. "You don't understand, it's—" Watching, Clara's eyes widened. She backed away. "Sarah, you need help." Sarah couldn't. Help couldn't reach her. Not when the darkness had already claimed the edges of her world. Flashbacks and patterns late one night, Sarah spread out all the clippings she'd gathered. Photographs of children, teenagers, adults. Each one disappeared without a trace. Locations marked: parks, lakesides, abandoned buildings, back alleys. Dates: eerily cyclical, always during quiet nights, always with items left behind. A memory returned, sharp and unwelcome. When she was 10, her cousin Lena disappeared during a camping trip. The police never found her. Lena's backpack was left neatly by a tree. No signs of struggle. Her disappearance had seemed tragic, isolated. But now Sarah saw the pattern. The vanishings weren't random. They were deliberate, slow, and calculating. The first encounter one evening, Sarah returned to the park again. The swings swayed lightly, though the air was still. She noticed footprints, Emma's size, leading toward the edge of the forest. Her breath caught. She followed, each step heavier than the last, a sudden rustling from the undergrowth. She froze. "Hello?" she called, voice barely above a whisper. No reply. Then a hand, pale, impossibly thin, brushed her shoulder. She spun. Nothing, only darkness, deeper than night, pressing against her. "Sarah," the voice hissed. She stumbled back, tripping over a root. Panic surged. Her phone, clutched tightly, illuminated a figure in the distance. Small, still, staring at her from the tree line. Not blinking, not moving. She called again. "Emma." The figure tilted its head. A whisper floated on the wind. "You're next." The ground beneath her seemed to pulse. Time stretched and compressed, moments elongating, shadows shifting faster than light. Sarah's mind screamed. Her body froze. Every rational thought screamed at her to flee, but something rooted her to the spot, a horrifying curiosity she could not resist. Isolation and growing desperation. Days bled into nights. Sarah's friends stopped visiting. Calls went unanswered. Even Clara seemed distant, almost afraid of what Sarah might uncover. The town itself felt alien. She passed familiar streets and houses that no longer seemed the same. Doors she had opened countless times now groaned against invisible resistance. Windows reflected not her face, but fleeting shadows that mimicked movement behind her. At night, she could hear the whispers growing louder, forming fragmented sentences. "Gone. Taken. Join us." Her dreams were no refuge. She awoke to rooms she had left locked, doors ajar, belongings moved. Every shadow was a threat, every sound a prelude. She began marking the hours, drawing symbols, leaving notes, anything to anchor herself. Yet the vanishings continued, the evidence mounting. A locket here, a shoe there, sometimes nothing at all. Only the whisper, "You'll disappear too." A glimpse of the unseen one late night, Sarah returned to the park for the third time. The swings moved slowly, rhythmically, though there was no wind. She followed the path into the woods, noticing faint footprints glowing faintly in the moonlight. The figure appeared again, just beyond the tree line. Not Emma, something taller. Its form blurred, human and wrong, stretching impossibly in the darkness. "Who are you?" Sarah whispered. No answer. Just the breeze carrying the soft, sibilant voice. "We all vanish. Some faster, some slower, but all end here." Sarah staggered back, tripping over roots, clutching the backpack tightly. She realized then that her fight was no longer about finding Emma, it was about surviving herself. Closing the conflict development, Sarah had pieced together the terrible truth. The vanishings weren't accidents. They weren't random. Something ancient, patient, and relentless moved through the town. Ordinary people, ordinary lives erased quietly, leaving only whispers and objects behind. Paranoia became instinct. Every shadow, every movement, every silence warned her. Even in the safety of her apartment, she could feel it, watching, waiting. Emma's fate, and all those before her, pressed against her consciousness. And in the deepest corners of her mind, Sarah understood the horrifying inevitability. Some disappearances were not just unsolved, they were unavoidable. Sarah's breath tore through her chest in ragged bursts as she stepped into the forest clearing. Moonlight slashed through skeletal branches, illuminating patches of grass that shimmered with an unnatural frost. The swings at the edge of the park had stopped moving, still, silent, waiting, but the air vibrated with a presence she could not see. Her phone flickered, dead, then glowed briefly with a message she hadn't sent. They're here. Heart hammering, she took a step forward, then another. The shadows coiled around her like thick smoke. Shapes began to emerge, faint at first. Ghostly, blurred edges that flickered like the film of an old camera. Figures, people, children, adults, faces she recognized from news clippings and police reports. They were all here, hovering at the edges of the clearing, motionless, silent. A whisper floated from everywhere at once. "You can't leave. Not now." Sarah spun, trying to locate the source. "Who's there?" she demanded, voice breaking. A figure stepped forward from the shadows. Tall, lean, wrong. Its movements were slow, deliberate, inhuman. It mirrored her every motion but in reverse, like a reflection in a warped mirror. "You shouldn't be here," it said, voice soft, yet filled with infinite menace. I'm looking for Emma," Sarah shouted, voice echoing. The figure tilted its head. The whisper became a hiss. "Emma is ours, as were the others. You will join them." Sarah's legs trembled. She tried to step back, but the forest floor seemed to ripple beneath her feet, shadows stretching out like fingers, gripping at her ankles. The horror revealed, time fractured, moments elongated and collapsed. Sarah saw flashes, Emma smiling in the park, then fading. Marcus by the playground, dissolving into mist. Lena on the cliffs, screaming silently. Each vanish replayed in fragments, distorted, unavoidable. The figure moved closer, its face blurred, changing, cycling through the faces of those who had disappeared, all smiling, all eyes hollow, mouths whispering, "You're next." "No!" Sarah screamed, stumbling backward. "I won't." A hand, pale and impossibly long, shot out from the shadows. Her backpack flew from her grip. She lunged to retrieve it, but the shadow recoiled and expanded, folding the clearing in darkness. The whispers grew louder, louder, until they were not whispers at all but voices, chanting, calling her name in overlapping tones. "Sarah, Sarah, Sarah." The ground beneath her cracked, or maybe it wasn't the ground at all. Time and space no longer behaved as they should. The park, the forest, her apartment, all merged into one impossible landscape. Doors appeared in midair, windows blinked open and closed, trees stretched impossibly tall. Her feet sank into the earth, but then floated above it, carried by something unseen. Dialogue and psychological breaking. Sarah's mind screamed, yet her body felt detached, almost as if she were observing herself from a distance. "You can't fight it," a familiar whisper hissed in her ear. "None of us could." "You're lying," she shouted, pounding fists against the invisible wall surrounding her. "Emma, tell me you're alive." A child's voice, faint and trembling. "Help me." The tall figure stepped closer, then split into many, hundreds of faceless copies, stretching in all directions. Each one spoke simultaneously, creating a chorus of terror. "You belong here, as we do, as they do." Sarah's knees buckled. She fell to the ground, clutching her head. Every memory, every news clipping, every whisper from the past, all the vanished people, pounded into her consciousness. The disappearances weren't random. They were orchestrated, inevitable, feeding the same dark force that now loomed over her. She tried to run, but the clearing stretched endlessly. Branches whipped at her face, roots wrapped around her ankles, shadows pressed against her skin. Final confrontation. "Stop! I won't go with you," she screamed, thrashing. The figure paused. Its shifting face hovered inches from hers. The air shimmered, heavy, almost tangible. "You already have," it whispered. Sarah felt a pull in her chest, icy, rooting her to the spot. Images flashed in her mind. Emma's backpack, Lena's lost shoe, Marcus's bicycle wheel spinning endlessly in a dark void. The pattern was clear now. The vanishings were not accidents. They were a harvest, each person drawn into a waiting darkness. "No!" she screamed again, trying to push against the invisible force. But every scream echoed back as the voices of the vanished. "No! You belong! You belong!" Her vision blurred. The shadows coalesced into a vortex around her, spinning faster, faster. Faces pressed against her mind, clawing at her thoughts, each one whispering, pleading, warning. "Run. Hide. It won't matter." Her hands reached out blindly. She tried to grab something solid, anything, but everything dissolved into blackness. The breaking point, Sarah's legs gave way. She sank to her knees, heart hammering in terror and disbelief. She remembered the police reports, the news articles, Clara's worried eyes. All the people she had seen vanish over the years, friends, strangers, children, all of them trapped in this same impossible space. The figure leaned closer, tilting its face through a kaleidoscope of vanished identities. Each face whispered a single word. "Join us. Now." Sarah's mind fractured. Fear and desperation overtook reason. Her voice trembled as she called out one last time, "Emma, please, tell me I can—" The scream caught in her throat. The shadows surged forward, overwhelming her senses. Time, space, and gravity warped into a disorienting swirl. She felt herself being lifted, stretched, pulled apart. Every scream she had ever heard, every whisper of the vanished, coalesced into one unbearable chorus. And then silence. Aftermath of the climax, when Sarah's vision returned, she was no longer in the clearing. She was somewhere between here and nowhere, a space of suspended reality. Shadows moved, alive, sentient, whispering constantly. Her body felt weightless, but trapped. She could see glimpses of the park, her apartment, news clippings, fragments of her life, yet could not touch them. A voice, Emma's this time, reached her from the shadows. "I'm here, but not like before." Sarah tried to respond, but her mouth was silent. Panic, confusion, terror, they had no meaning here. She realized with finality that this force did not merely take people. It existed outside of rules, consuming lives in a slow, inescapable cycle. Her mind reached for a memory, anything familiar. She thought of her parents, her home, the town she had walked through just days ago. But the shadows twisted even those into illusions, leaving only the oppressive weight of inevitability. We all vanish, some faster, some slower, but none escape. A cold, endless darkness pressed against her. She realized the truth she had resisted all along. She would not return. Not really. Her body might still exist somewhere in the real world, but her essence, her awareness, was now part of this growing, eternal void. Climactic imagery and tone. The forest, the park, the town, they were no longer separate. They existed only as fragments in the consciousness of the vanished. Shadows stretched, bending over impossible terrain. The moonlight flickered through, distorted branches, revealing brief glimpses of lost faces. Marcus, Lena, Emma, all watching her join the ranks of the taken. The wind carried a single final message: "You are one now, and the others await." Sarah's last thoughts, fear, confusion, desperate hope, were swallowed by the darkness. And yet, in that space between worlds, she understood. The vanishings were not cruel accidents. They were inevitable, patient, unstoppable. And the town would continue, its secrets hidden in plain sight, claiming the next ordinary person who wandered too close to the shadows. The town awoke to a quiet morning, as ordinary as any other. The sun filtered through the thin morning haze, illuminating streets lined with houses that looked untouched by the night's horrors. Birds chirped, dogs barked in distant yards. But a subtle, unplaceable emptiness clung to the air, like the faint echo of a scream just beyond hearing. No one noticed. Nothing seemed missing. And yet, for those who had paid attention, or had reason to, the absence was palpable. Sarah's apartment remained as she had left it, the windows slightly ajar, the locks untouched, the faint chill in the air stubbornly lingering. Her belongings were intact, yet something was off. The shadows lingered longer than natural, corners seemed too deep, and the hum of electricity sounded hollow, like it carried a secret. In the days that followed, neighbors remarked on her sudden disappearance from daily life. She didn't answer calls, didn't show up at work, didn't visit friends. Clara, who had tried to reach her repeatedly, finally stopped. She left a single note at Sarah's apartment. "I hope you're okay. Come back if you can." But there was no reply. Lingering echoes of the horror. The forest behind the park looked unchanged to anyone else. Children played on the swings. Couples walked dogs along the winding paths. Yet those who had observed closely, or had ever felt the pull of the shadows, noticed the subtle signs. A swing moved just slightly after being still. Footprints appeared overnight, small and erratic. A backpack left neatly on the ground. Reports in the local paper followed the pattern, each one carefully worded. Child missing near park. Authorities investigating. The language was clinical, neutral, dismissing the weight of what had happened. Inside, the town's residents whispered quietly. Some spoke of unexplained vanishings, of patterns too persistent to ignore, of something ancient and patient that claimed people without warning, and in those whispers, the story lived. Sarah's transformation, Sarah, or what remained of her, existed somewhere between here and nowhere. Time no longer had meaning. Her consciousness drifted through a liminal space, a reflection of the town twisted and broken. Faces she had known, the children, the adults, the vanished, floated nearby. Silent observers, some pleading, some indifferent. She tried to remember her old life, the warmth of her apartment, the laughter of friends, the ordinary worries of someone living a normal day. But each memory felt like it belonged to someone else. Her sense of self fractured, reshaped by the darkness that had claimed her. Occasionally she glimpsed the park in fragments. Emma's swings, the forest clearing, the faint glimmer of moonlight on the grass. She could see people moving in the distance, unaware of her presence, continuing life as if nothing had happened. And yet she knew that life had changed irrevocably. For her, and for those who had come before, the ordinary world was unreachable. A whisper reached her from the void, soft but unyielding. They all belong. Now. Sarah understood. There would be no rescue, no reunion. The force that had claimed her, and all the others, was patient, inexorable, and immortal. And if someone else wandered too close, too curious, too unaware, it would claim them too. The town moves. On the town never stopped. Life continued, banal and beautiful in its surface normalcy. Shops opened, schools operated. People went about their days. Behind closed doors, families mourned quietly. But the disappearances continued, as they always had. A mother looked for her child near the park, finding only an abandoned toy. A jogger vanished near the cliffs, leaving a water bottle behind. Notes appeared in the news reports, written carefully to reassure. Authorities are investigating. There is no indication of foul play. And yet, shadows deepened in places no one noticed. Dark corners of houses seemed more profound. Parks and trails held a tension in the air, almost imperceptible, waiting. The disappearances were like threads in a tapestry, subtle to those who didn't look, but stark and horrifying to those who could see the pattern. Final chilling imagery. Inside Sarah's apartment, a chair rocked gently. On the counter, a pen rolled across the surface as if moved by invisible fingers. The temperature dropped imperceptibly, and shadows shifted unnaturally. Outside, the park appeared calm, children laughing, sunlight dancing through the trees. But beneath that calm, the forest still pulsed. Somewhere in the edge of perception, the figures of the vanished lingered, patient, waiting. Emma's backpack remained tucked beneath a swing. Footprints appeared overnight in the soft earth, small and fleeting. A breeze carried a faint whisper. We are here, and we will wait for the next one. Sarah's consciousness drifted toward the edge of the clearing again. She tried to scream, but her voice was swallowed before it formed. She glimpsed the shadowy figures watching her, their eyes hollow, their faces distorted, yet vaguely human. The horror of inevitability settled over her fully. She had crossed the threshold. There was no going back, and the town, ignorant and alive, went on as if nothing had happened. Ending with lingering unease, at night, the swings sway even when no wind blows. Footsteps echo in empty hallways. The forest beyond the park stretches, longer than it should, shadows reaching toward those who wander too close. People vanish. Sometimes a shoe is left behind, sometimes a notebook, sometimes nothing at all. And the whispers continue. Join us, or be next. The disappearances are not accidents. They are patient. They are inevitable. And those who vanish, like Sarah, like Emma, like Marcus, like Lena, are not gone entirely. They exist somewhere between here and nowhere, watching, waiting, and the town remains, unknowingly feeding the cycle, its ordinary streets hiding an extraordinary horror beneath the surface.